Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh. I am the fantasy football buff, and today we're talking Dynasty. I'm here with my good friend Noah, and we are going today to do a mid-season review on the Dynasty League that we started back this past May. And we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. We're going to talk about the current standings. We're going to talk about the blockbuster trades that have happened. We're going to discuss polarizing players like Jonathan Taylor and like Saquon. So you watch this video, and we're going to go through all of that so you can make these decisions before your trade deadline hits. All right, Noah, thanks for joining me, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. I've been looking forward to this. The last video was so fun when we went through the draft, and I think we hit a lot of different things. But there have also been some things that we kind of left under the radar. So I'm excited to see what we can uncover here.
Absolutely. No, and that's one of my favorite things about Dynasty, or just about fantasy football in general. I can have the strongest opinion in the world, and in 6 months from now, we're going to know whether or not I was right? And you'll actually get proven right or wrong, which is something that very rarely happens nowadays. So it is, for that reason, one of my favorite things. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so everyone can see my league. Our league, perfect. All right. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Excellent. Let's go. So we're going to start looking at the league here. So before we kick it off, I got a great first question for you. We're 9 weeks in. What have you learned so far, right? In our league specifically, what have you taken away? What do you think is the biggest difference maker a team could have on a week-to-week basis?
Well, I will say when we were drafting, we did that slow draft, and we had 8 hours a pick, correct?
Yeah.
8 hours a pick, and everyone drafted it like a standard redraft 1 QB league.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
QBs were going so late. Like, in hindsight, I'm like, man, I wish I would have just taken Pat Mahomes and just called it a day.
Yeah.
With that second overall pick. But, I'm here where I am. I would say just quarterback depth as a whole. I mean, I had to start Danucci 1 week last week. And if you start Danucci, I didn't break 100 points. So I had to start him 1 week. That didn't feel good. So just the quarterback depth is just so valuable to have, because no matter whether I have Teddy Bridgewater and Kyler Murray. No matter if Kyler Murray is going to start every single week. But for Teddy Bridgewater, there are some matchups where I'm like, I don't know if I want to start him, but I have no choice. It's just I'm starting him. It is what it is. If he gets 8 points, awesome. If he gets 35 points, fantastic. It is what it is. So having quarterback depth and options at quarterback, I definitely think gives you an advantage. Season to season, week to week. I will say, though, that I do think it leaves you on a hindrance when it comes to being able to pick up and drop on the waiver wire. The fact that I only have 2 quarterbacks, or I guess I have 3 quarterbacks now on my roster, allows me to have a lot of flexibility with guys that I want to take dart throws at before a week. And it worked out for me once, and I got Travis Fulgham before he popped off big time, and that's been someone that I've been enjoying having on my team.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And I'm right with you. One of the biggest takeaways for me has been depth. Right? The teams that have 2 elite quarterbacks are doing really well for the most part, right? The teams that have, from what I've seen so far, teams that can put legitimate flex players in all 3 of their flex spots are most likely to win on a week-to-week basis, right? So you could have an amazing running back, an amazing wide receiver, but if you're starting some third-tier running back who is barely getting any carries, or some wide receiver who might get a couple targets, chances are you're going to struggle. So depth in this league is huge. So I figured, for people who are watching, you can see you and I are facing off, and you're going to kick my ass this week, which I'm really mad about. But that happens. Let's talk really quickly about the league landscape in general, right? I'm going to go down. We're going to go through.
Thank you. Yes, that's what I want to see.
We're going to go through in depth the standings a little bit later. But for right now, what is your biggest takeaway from what we're looking at right in front of you?
I'm surprised that Zach's team is as low as it is.
Yeah.
I think, and a lot of it has been because of his lack of starting the correct players. Many of weeks he's left way too many, especially early on in the season, he left way too many points on his bench. That's something I thought has been interesting. He's 11-29. He scored more points than me. He scored more points than the 7th place, more points than the 6th place. and more points than Nino in the 4th place, but he just hasn't been able to win on weeks that he needs to win. And like had Justin Jefferson on his bench a couple weeks, and he popped off early on in the season. It's like, you start him 1 week and it's like Jonch's, right up in the 5th, 6th spot. I think another thing that's interesting is the fact that 4 through 8, I would say, even 4 through 9 are all so close in points scored and points allowed. And that it really has been coming down to what your week-to-week matchups are, which is fantasy in a nutshell. But, you see I think the 3 guys at the top have scored a lot more points than everyone else. I mean, if to be over 1,300 points 8 weeks through the season is incredible. And I think that just is a testament to – and still having a lot of points scored on you. I mean, 12-16 scored on you. That's what, third most? Behind Zach and then Sam. So I would just say just the matchups as a whole has been interesting to see how they've balanced. But even teams that, don't have the greatest roster makeup or have had lack of success with injury, a.k.a. Trey's team. Who everyone on his team gets hurt. I mean, he's still in the thick of things to make the playoffs. And he's a couple, and he got a nice. I mean, him beating me last week on a game where you only had first one to 100 points wins go type of thing. Who that just kind of put him in a position where it's like, all right, man, if he wants to, he can make the playoffs, and if not, maybe that 7th spot is viable for him. But right now, if playoffs were starting, if playoffs would have been this week, he would have been in, and I would have been out. So that's really what it comes down to.
Absolutely, man. I think for me, my biggest takeaway, at least looking at our league so far, is how top heavy it seems to be. Right? The top 3 teams that we have in front of us, Nick Sakalakis, my team, and Atticus. These 3 teams, at least up to this point, have put up just huge, ridiculous amounts of points. Like Nick, every single week, seems to be putting up 180-plus points every single week and doing it consistently. And then you have that next tier, which I'm about to lose this week, and I have a couple tough matchups moving forward, and I'm about to be put into this tier. It's going to be so close to who makes the playoffs, right? Because I lose this week against you, and I'm all of a sudden in the 4th or 5th spot. Right, and if I lose the week following that, I think I face Atticus in a couple weeks, I might not even make the playoffs. That's how close it is, which is awesome.
I mean, anyone too. I don't know. Is Zach going to win this week?
Let's see. I don't think so. No, he faces.
No. So pretty much, if you go back down to the standings, everyone 2 through 8 could make or miss the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah. It's
with a couple breaks here and there, I mean, everyone 2 through 8 could miss the playoffs. It's unbelievable. The depth that's in this league across the board. It's kind of interesting that Sagalicious, only spent $9 on the waiver so far. He's just wheeling and dealing on the waiver wire. Whether I don't know how much he's had to use the waiver wire because his depth is so solid. And his quarterback play is great. That's really what puts it's so frustrating to look at his team.
And we'll dive into that a little bit more, slightly more down the road. We're actually, the next step for us is to talk about the trades that have happened, because I want to go through them with you, and then we'll go through each team and reflect on the trades, and then give a little bit of advice to each team moving forward as well. So I'm going to scroll down and pull up trades. All right, we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom and start with the trade that kicked it all off back in June 7th. I think you and I shot our first video at the end of May. That was right after the draft had happened. This was the first trade in our league. It was between me and then Sam Adamdakis, who is currently who is in last place in our league with only 1 win. And this trade, in the moment, I think he mentioned something in the chat about how he wanted Kenyon Drake on his team. And I said, dude, I'll send you Marvin Jones, because he was looking for depth, for Josh Jacobs and Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard at the time was an afterthought, right? He hadn't really.
He went so late in the draft.
Yeah, he went so incredibly late in the draft. So at least when it comes to draft picks, right, it was pretty fair on that front. The trade goes through. Week 1 happens. Josh Jacobs sees, 7 targets, scores 3 touchdowns. I'm like, man, I just got away with robbery. Since then, things have kind of balanced out a little bit. I do still have youth on my side. And Kenyon Drake has had his struggles, as has Marvin Jones. But I would say at this point, up to this season, it's been a relatively fair trade. Just in when it comes to pure fantasy output.
For this season, yes, but the future of Kenyon Drake is just so unknown. That's what blew my mind about the trade. Is why you would trade for a guy that is on a 1-year deal on a team that's only had him for 8 games.
Yeah.
That's kind of what blew my mind when it came to that trade. And I mean, he's also the one that has McCaffrey as well, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So I mean, that kind of is like, all right, that also plays into the fact like you're banking on McCaffrey having anywhere between 20 and 40 points a week, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And when you lose that, your number 1 pick in the Dynasty league, it gets a little tough.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say fair trade, but long term wise, I'm a very, as if you know my team, very long term.
Yeah.
I got youth up the butt. It's unbelievable. Like it pains me sometimes how young I went, but
so funny. Yeah.
But that's my issue. It's just that's something you got to look for in Dynasty. Is like, all right, where are these guys contract wise?
Yeah.
And the Josh Jacobs solidified next 3 years, minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, and from his perspective, I mean, I actually asked another Instagram page that I really respect about this trade, and he recommended that I don't take it because at that time he had Kenyon Drake ranked as a top 5 running back this season. Right, Kenyon Drake is older, but he doesn't have a lot of carries on his body, and the Cardinals are paying him so much money this season that it was almost a guarantee if he continued producing from last year that he'd get that longer-term contract. Hasn't happened yet. He isn't being as efficient as the past was, but also Josh Jacobs isn't seeing the targets we thought he was going to get. So I understand either side of the trade for sure. Next, we have this trade between you and your brother Nino. Now, what was your thoughts on this trade particularly? It's kind of a lower tier trade. Clearly, Nino needed a quarterback. Where were you sitting with it?
This was my thought process. I regretted not drafting Harrison Bryant with my last pick, and then I was trying to figure out how I could draft him or how I could pick him up, but it was me trying to figure out sleeper, and it wouldn't let me, do what I needed to do. And so by the time it happened, he picked him up, and I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And then I realized Fitzpatrick he's not playing all 16 games this year. It's not going to happen. It never happens when you have a rookie that you take in the first round. So I was like, I'm willing to give up Fitzpatrick, and he was playing really well. So I was like, all right, I'll give that up. I gave up that 2nd round pick, which hurt, but I was like, I believe in Harrison Bryant enough. I viewed it as I'm trading back from maybe 16 overall to about 25. So I'm dropping about 10 spots. I still keep a pick, and I get the guy that I really wanted. And it's panned out for the most part because if you look, we had another trade where I got that 2nd round pick back, and I'm happy with how that went. But it was honestly, I was going to annoy Nino until he traded me, that we finally just came to terms on okay, you can have him.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I like it. And like you said, you totally predicted it. Ryan Fitzpatrick was on fire, no longer even starting. So you did get the future value in Harrison Bryant, and you got that pick back later in another trade. This is the next trade between Nino and Trey sparks a conversation that I think you and I are going to refer to throughout this video. And it's Nino's strategy moving forward in this league. And you and I were talking about this a little bit the other night before I made another trade with him. And Nino came to this realization, this very common dynasty strategy, that you want to build your team around elite wide receivers, right? That you want that to be the core of your team, because wide receivers on a year-by-year basis are more consistent in the top 10. I mean, just look at Todd Gurley, look at David Johnson, even look at Zeke this year, right? They're all struggling running backs as they get older. Meanwhile, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Julio's old, man. He's into his 30s and is still balling, right? So he took a trade where he sacrificed 2 of his middle tier. I guess middle tier is a tough word. I mean, compared to DeAndre Hopkins, it is. But he sacrificed A.J. Brown and Miles Sanders, which from a pure value perspective, I don't know if I would have done. But he got D-Hop, and he got the handcuff to his David Johnson pick in Duke Johnson. So that's at least my interpretation of it. Is there anything else that I missed on that one?
I talked to Nino about this because I was also trying to trade for DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay, and he's balling, man.
I tried to send Saquon straight up. I tried to send Saquon and McKinnon because Trey has a bunch of Niners. He wouldn't buy it. I was like, all right,
This
whatever. I'm
Saquon
at
post
work. I get
ACL.
this notification. What'd you say?
Saquon post injury.
Saquon post injury.
Injury. Okay.
Unfortunately, I had DeAndre Hopkins for Saquon straight up if I wanted it before injury.
Oh yeah, it's tough.
Which really, yeah. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
I was like, that sucks.
Yeah.
But when you look at the draft board,
Mhm.
A.J. Brown and Miles Sanders were Nino's second and third round picks.
Yep.
Nino had 2 third round picks, correct? You traded him your third, correct?
I did, yeah.
And that's where you got Jonathan.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
That's where he got Jonathan Taylor late in the third round. So he traded A.J. Brown and Miles Sanders, his second and third pick, or second and third round pick, for the 5th pick in the initial draft.
Yeah.
And when you look at it that way, it's like that is what it would cost to be able to move up like that without giving up your first round pick.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And when you put it like that, I go, it does hurt to give up. Miles Sanders, that depends how you feel about Philly, but A.J. Brown is one of those youth receivers that would be nice to have a team to build around.
Oh yeah.
I think the uncertainty of what they're going to end up doing with Tannehill is going to be interesting. I don't know how long he's going to last in Tennessee. Just on like a pure is he really the future type of guy?
Because contract-wise, he's locked in for the next 4 years. But who's to say that they don't draft a young QB if he starts?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know that if I'm pretty sure that contract has, I want to say first 2 years for guaranteed. So this year, next year. And then after that, I think it kind of falls off. I could be wrong on that though. So he wanted to really just be like, I really want DeAndre Hopkins. A.J. Brown and Miles Sanders were both kind of he sold them low.
He did. Yeah.
Which is the part that hurts on that trade. But I think overall that team or that trade really helped Trey's makeup of his team because he needed the running back depth, still got a solid receiver. And then that really helped Nino's team because he didn't really need Miles Sanders, but he got a bona fide, next 5-10 year, Hall of Fame receiver on your team. Literally the best wide receiver in the NFL and has been for the past 3 or 4 years.
Dang. All right. and locked in with an amazing quarterback in a great offensive system. So I like the trade. Dude, this was a win-win in my eyes, right? Like
it was the best win-win trade that has happened in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. Where Trey gets a little bit of his depth and because he needed running back badly.
That's putting it nicely.
Putting it nicely. And because Raheem Mostert was his RB1 before this, for people that don't know. But yeah, I agree with you. I like the trade. And I think you brought up a conversation or another topic that I really want to push because we're about to talk about my blockbuster trade here. And you
oh my God.
and you mentioned before buying low, right? And my perspective in Dynasty up this point is very similar to day trading, right? Where it's very similar to just basic day trading in the stock market, where you want to, of course, sell high and you want to buy low. And I think I was able to take advantage, or not take advantage, but I think I was able to do that in this trade. And before you roast me for giving up Dalvin Cook, I want to dive into a little bit about what I was thinking, right? So from a perspective point, it's October 6th. We're about 4 weeks into the season. I won my first week against Trey and then lost the following 3 weeks in like shootouts where I put up 150 plus points every single week and still lost in 3 weeks in a row. And I was sitting there and I had this moment where I was like, man, if I want to win this championship, I need another elite quarterback on my team. I love Dalvin Cook, right? He's a baller. Ever since then, he's been balling out. He's the #1 running back right now in fantasy. It's not even really close, right? But looking at it from a longevity and from this year in particular, I said I wanted another wide receiver to make my wide receiver core stacked, right? And I wanted another quarterback because at this time, Dak Prescott was the best quarterback in fantasy football, and it wasn't even close, right? This was another situation where throughout the first month, he was the quarterback one. So this was, of course, we call this the unholy trade because everyone seemed to get injured after that. I mean, right now, Calvin Ridley's injured. Dak Prescott is injured. Dalvin Cook is healthy again. And I did end up getting Joe Burrow back in the following trade. But that was my perspective in this, where, yes, I gave up Dalvin Cook and Joe Burrow. But I moved up in the draft. I got one of my favorite wide receivers, and I got an elite quarterback. And it feeds into the running back philosophy you and I were just talking about, where, running backs, they hit a ceiling when they hit 26, 27 years old, where they start declining. Dalvin Cook has an extensive injury history, and I just felt that this move was best for the future of my team. But you, let me hear. I want to hear what you had to think about this trade in particular.
This was my issue with the trade. We're so close to the initial draft that I think you still have to pay respect to what you did in the draft, unless if you're calling it like, hey, that was a bad pick, I need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just botching it, and I'm not doing the sunk cost fallacy. I'm just gonna die with it. I'm getting out now, taking my losses and getting out. That's I think we're too close to the draft. And so you traded up to get Dalvin.
I did, yeah.
And then to see you trade him away, plus Joe Burrow, blew my mind, because you didn't even need Joe Burrow when you drafted him.
Yeah.
It was a quarterback depth piece. And I was like,
well, he's my quarterback too. It was Mahomes and then him and then Drew Lock. So he was my quarterback too. Yeah.
it just didn't make sense to me why you, especially with what I've realized. I was like, dude, man, quarterbacks are so valuable. Yeah. And then Joe Burrow just looks so good. And I think this is how I've compared Joe Burrow. Mm-hmm. I think this is the best way I can do it. Joe Burrow is, because you have to remember, the coaching staff that is now coaching Joe Burrow was the quarterback's coach of the Rams during their Super Bowl run.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Taylor, former Husker, go Big Red. He was the quarterback's coach, left, now the head coach of Cincinnati. This pains me to say. Oh, my goodness. But Joe Burrow is everything the Rams have always wanted Jared Goff to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In terms of, I think they are very comparable in terms of talent-wise, in terms of throws that they can make, their athleticism with their feet, and what they can do with the core around them. But I think the difference between Joe Burrow and Jared Goff is Joe Burrow has it here, and Jared Goff kind of needs that little, needs the help from his offensive coordinator. Joe Burrow has the it factor, and Goff doesn't. Other than that, if you see them thrown in 7-on-7 workouts and it's just like thrown against air, they're going to be phenomenal. They're going to look the exact same.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to make both throws. So just trading away Joe Burrow, and I know you got him back. I was like, that's what blew my mind. You can even go on to the next trade. Yeah. Because it blew my mind how you got Joe Burrow back. Look, hold up. Can we look at the timestamp on this?
Yeah.
October 13th. 7 days later.
Yeah, 7 days later. So this is – let me talk through the situation really quickly to give the full picture on this one. I will scroll up here, and the timing just worked out perfectly for the recuperation of my team. But more specifically, when it came to draft cost, I personally have decided that the original draft cost to me does not matter at all, right? Like, does not matter at all. And the main reason I say that is because our draft back in May was drafted as if it was a single quarterback league. Right, it really was, right, where Dak Prescott went in like the 7th round. If you look at ADP, for people who know what 2 quarterback leagues are like, Dak Prescott is a top 12 pick before he got injured, right? He was a first-round pick almost every single time. So I was looking at more at like value and what they would mean to my team, and less but what happened in the draft, because that was just my personal perspective moving forward. But anyways, going to this specific trade again, the timing just worked out perfectly, where Joe Burrow, I forget who he played, but this week in particular, he had a terrible game. He put up like 4 points, and I think it was against the Ravens, and did not look good, right? Derek Carr goes off. Dalvin Cook gets injured, and I have Alexander Mattison on my team. And the reason why I think Atticus did go for this trade, he actually initially reached out to me, where we swapped our picks back. He got Alexander Mattison because he knows how injury-prone Dalvin Cook is. And having Cook and not handcuffing him is risky business in this league. It's risky. And I think Alexander Mattison is not at the same talent tier, but I think he's good enough that if Cook does get hurt, and we've seen this in the past, he gets 20 carries in an amazing run scheme, he's going to have a decent enough week.
It's like having Tony Pollard and having Zeke. It's like you're buying into the system, and they're both talented. Exactly. You gotta. It's just like you're rolling the dice every single week, not having a backup at a position that gets injured. all the time.
Oh, yeah. Especially with Cook, who has this history. And it might be different in redraft leagues, but in dynasty leagues, having those top-tier handcuffs for your top-tier options are so important, right? It's just so important. So I think it was a little bit of, that just immediate gut reaction of Joe Burrow underperforming, of Alexander Mattison putting up a decent game after Cook got hurt. I gave him a decent enough depth piece in quarterback with Derek Carr, and then we just swapped those things back, and I got my boy Zach Moss from the Utes. So he's so overall, I think it's tough for me to look at these two different trades and kind of rationalize each one. I just look at this whole week span of Atticus and I talking for a week straight and try to look at it more as a whole, right? Because when you look at it like that, then you see that I get an injured Dak Prescott, I get Calvin Ridley, I get Zach Moss, I keep Joe Burrow, and then he gets the Minnesota Vikings backfield locked down and Derek Carr, right? So it's not, when you look at it as a whole, it's not credibly out of whack, but when you go play by play, it was a really, really weird week.
Well, what upset me was I didn't know Joe Burrow and Dalvin Cook was a duo that was willing to be traded. I thought that was, and that's my own fault. I did not think anyone would trade those two. Yeah. I was like, there's no way. I was like, those are staples. And then I see him get traded and I go, wow, I really missed out. And then a week later, I see that it gets pretty much traded back and Joe Burrow goes back. I go, okay, how did someone trade for Joe Burrow and then trade him right back to the same person that had him? Yeah. Come on, step into my office. I want Joe Burrow. Come on, you're killing me. It just blew my mind. Again, I'm at work. I see that go through. I go, dude, you got to be kidding me. This can't make it up, man. But I think overall, when you put it like that, it was a really good trade, I think, for your team. It just at the time it was puzzling. At the time it was puzzling.
Cook is cooking right now, so it's tough to watch.
He's fantastic. And I will say, Dalvin Cook against Clemson at home, 2016, Florida State.
Oh, yeah.
Had the best single performance of a running back I've ever seen live with my own two eyes. It was incredible. So he really is the truth. He should have been a first-round pick.
Yeah. He is an absolute baller, to say the least. All right, let's go to the next trade. Another one between you and Nino. This is where you got that second-round pick back. And, dude, another win-win where a couple weeks after this trade has happened, Nino still gets the tight end that he much needed because he had Gronk, and Gronk had such a slow start to the season, even though he's now kind of slowly getting back to pace. You got a couple great picks, and Dallas Goedert, who what's his name? The starting tight end. I forgot his name last.
Zach Ertz.
Yeah, if Zach Ertz is injured for the rest of the season, or if he gets traded after this season, which is looking like it might happen, or I'm pretty sure his contract is done after this season. His
contract is up. He is. Yeah. He is in a contract year for sure.
If that happens, then Dallas Goedert is a top 3 tight end next season.
Well, I mean, you have Kelsey, you have Kittle, you have Waller, you have Mark Andrews, and has to be him.
Yeah.
Top 5, top 6.
I might even put Goddard over in that same tier as Waller and Andrews for sure, just because of the Eagles and how they use tight ends,
Oh, I think I would agree with that as well. So this was a big thing. Nino kept wanting Darren Waller, and I go, all right. I've had Darren Waller on the block, for a while. So I go, if there's one player I'm willing to trade, it's Darren Waller. When I drafted him, I go, this is a value pick. I don't love him, but I like him. I'm willing to deal him. And I know Nino was someone that really coveted him. And me, if you know my team, I want picks. I want to move up in the draft. I know exactly who I want. I watch a lot of college football. I know even if I've already have my second round picks planned out. Unless if things happen and I have other people falling, I already know exactly who I want with each pick, assuming they're going to be, I think one of them will probably be around, hopefully 11, but if not, maybe the 16, 17 range. I know exactly what kind of players I want to go after. And I was like, Waller for this year would be awesome, but my team's not winning this year. Yeah. I go, my team, I'm building it for next year. I'm always looking forward. And eventually I'm going to have to stop that philosophy and go, all right, this is the year I'm going to win. Yeah. But I know this isn't it. I'm a year away from being a year away. Next year is my year. Next year I'll be saying it'll be next year,
Yeah.
which is fine with me. I'm cool with that. That's why I drafted Kyler Murray over Russell Wilson because
Yeah.
I wanted the youth at quarterback. They went almost back-to-back picks.
Yeah.
I went Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, one more, and then I got to take Cam Akers. So
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So those second-round picks were huge. He got Waller. Nino texted me after saying I probably could have gotten – because I had another third-round pick. I had his third-round pick as well that I still have now.
Okay.
And he goes, I probably could have gotten both third-round picks. I go, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would have easily done that because you texted me and Trey texted me saying, wow, Noah, you got a deal. I go, hey, man.
Yeah.
Nino put it this way. I had to push one – because I sent him this trade. He sent me initial one. I go, nah, this is what it'll take to get Darren Waller. And he's told me on the phone, he goes, all I had to do was press one button, and I had Darren Waller on my team. He goes, I was going to do it because Godare was hurt, or is it Goddard?
I don't know. I just pronounce it. That's how.
I always say Godare. I don't know. It just seems French, but that's just what I do. Either or. He was just like, one push of the button, let's get him on my team. And it's actually worked out really well for Nino. And if you look at Nino's starting lineup, he's really building a team that could win this year if his quarterbacks pan out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he really is. And we'll dive into that a little bit more. We only have a couple more trades to quickly review. This is just a quick one between Nino and I. And again, goes into the philosophy of getting young players with bright futures, meanwhile selling players at their peak. Mike Davis, I think I traded for peak value. I dropped $40 of fab to get him when CMC got hurt. And the man single-handedly won me weeks. I mean, he was dropping 20 points, it seemed, every other week. This trade happened at the very end of October. And so I knew that Mike Davis, his days were numbered, right? CMC comes back. Mike Davis, 28 years old. Not sure what real value he's had. And then I tacked out a third-round pick for Curtis Samuel, who is, so incredibly fast and really starting to be used in the offense. And then Dwayne Haskins, former first-round pick, just got benched. His stock could not be lower, right? And I actually expected I was praying the Steelers were going to trade for him. Didn't happen. So we'll see what happens moving forward because the Washington football team are not excited about Haskins. So I'm really curious to see how that panned out. But, a couple weeks later, I traded Samuel back to him, which we'll go over in a little bit. But I don't think there's much to say about this trade. I think it was just he needed a running back. I got a couple of youth pieces, and he got a pick. For sure.
Yeah, and if McCaffrey goes down at all, I don't know. How did Mike Davis do today? Did he
he got a couple targets. I think he got a couple targets. He didn't get much work. But then apparently CMC had some kind of rib injury at the very, very end of the game. And so Mike Davis got put back in at the end of the game. So who knows, man? It's a brutal position. And
I will say Carolina is in a position to make a run at the playoffs.
They are. Yeah.
Surprisingly, I really thought their defense was going to be garbage, and I didn't know how well their offense – I believed in Teddy Bridgewater. He's on my team. I believed in Teddy Bridgewater. I believed in that offense, especially around Christian McCaffrey. And Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator is fantastic. But with the whole COVID situation, I don't know how easily they were going to mesh.
Yeah.
But that team they're very well coached.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun to watch. But no, I thought this was a great you kind of buying extremely low on a former first-round quarterback that's in his second year, you know. It's like hasn't even played 2 full seasons. And one of those off seasons, his first off season after being a pro is COVID. So it's like he's a rookie again, and is kind of how I see it. And then Nino gets another pick, which Nino's always trying to wheel and deal those third round picks. He loved to throw those out. So I thought it was a very just baseline good trade.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely, in my opinion, a win-win. We have this one with Zach and Nino that happened 3 days later from the last one. You and I talked about in the first video, looking at Nino's team, the man needed quarterbacks, right? The man needed quarterbacks, and he pretty badly. So he traded Phillip Rivers and Rob Gronkowski, who was having a pretty tough season, and then my third-round pick for Drew Brees. And you mentioned a little bit earlier, if he's making a playoff push, which he is right now, he's 5-3 and has a legit chance at pushing for a championship, then Drew Brees was the perfect move because he needed that extra quarterback, in my opinion.
Especially after getting Darren Waller, Gronkowski became expendable for him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And because there's always, especially in our league, there's always a tight end to pick up in the waiver.
Yeah.
That you can start almost any week. You can Colts tight ends are all out on the waiver right now. Yeah. And you could start anyone. You could start. I know you don't want them long term, but you could start any one of them on a single week if you really needed to.
That's true.
And Nino also has Jameis. So if anything happens to Drew Brees, he doesn't have to worry about skipping a beat. Oh, trust me, this was calculated very much.
He's
I do
got
think
the
Nino's
quarterback handcuff. Oh, baby.
yes, and who Nino took very early in Jameis, as we all know. But
that's so
Nino, Nino slightly overpaid.
Yeah.
But Nino needed that trade because I think Phillip Rivers was on a bye, or he had a quarterback conundrum. And he goes, I need a win this week, and Drew Brees can get me there. And he ended up winning because of this trade.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it was a perfect trade for him, especially, I mean, Zach gets the extra pick. He gets a little bit of quarterback depth, but also Zach, who was a team that I thought he had solid tight ends. He has Zach Ertz and Tyler Higbee, and both at this point are unusable. I mean, Ertz is injured and Higbee's been droppable in redraft league. So I do think this was a great win-win. This is the most recent trade. As I'm sure people watching can tell, Nino leads the league in trades with 9, and I'm in second with 8. So we are wheeling and dealing. And, man, I love it. I love people who I love our league because everyone is interactive. They're talking in the chat. People are making trades. It's just so much fun. I've never been in a league like this. And this is the most recent trade. And when I tell you I lost sleep over this trade, that is not an over-exaggeration. I literally lost sleep the night before this trade because I'm such a big Terry McLaurin fan. I mean, you watch any of his highlights, he's a true elite talent who is a top 15 wide receiver right now in fantasy with trash quarterbacks, right? With a team that has a terrible offensive line. He has Kyle Allen throwing him the ball. Now he has Alex Smith throwing him the ball, and he's still producing. He's that good. And he's 24 years old. He's already a team captain. Terry McLaurin's going to be the future of this team. He's going to be a top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty, in my opinion, by next season. And then I also get returned Curtis Samuel to him, which was kind of a mixed bag. I wasn't super high on Curtis Samuel, but I mean, everything coming out of the Panthers is that they love Curtis Samuel's talent and they want to keep featuring him. And they've been doing that so far, even in the run game. But this is where the whole trade hinged for me because I talked to you, I talked to Trey, I talked to Zach, I talked to my wife about it, and she doesn't know anything about football, and I just try to talk her through it to figure out where my thoughts were. Because Nino sent me this trade out of nowhere. She just looked at me like not even knowing who any of these people are, and I'm like, well, you have to understand. It was so fun. She didn't think I could. She recommended I didn't take this trade, so we'll see if she was right. But Jonathan Taylor is a player, and Nino even admitted this when I talked to him. He is an excellent buy low candidate right now for everyone watching this, if you believe in his talent and in his future, right? We need to put into consideration how well he did at the combine, right? He's a freak of nature. He had back-to-back 2,000-yard rushing seasons back in college, right? He is just such a beast. He is so incredibly quick. Coming out of the combine, people were comparing him to Saquon for physical talent. You come to the draft, the Colts draft Michael Pittman Jr. in the first round, or at the very beginning of the second round, I believe it was. And then a couple picks later, they trade up to get Jonathan Taylor, right? It wasn't their pick. They traded multiple picks to come up and get him because they saw they was on his board. They need him. Marlon Mack tears his ACL. Jonathan Taylor comes in. And, I mean, the guy has never played a snap in the NFL ever, but people are looking at him and expecting him to be a top 5 running back because of the offensive line he plays behind and because of his talent. Well, the poor guy, he gets his first NFL snap, but there was a game against the Jets in week 4 where he runs directly into his own offensive line.
I just saw that you sent me that, and I was
there
like,
is a gaping hole. I'll play the video over our chat, but there is a gaping hole next to him, and he's like, his head is down, and he runs right into his offensive lineman. And there was this 45-minute video of this big Colts fan who breaks down Jonathan Taylor's video, breaks down his tape over the last 8 weeks. And he's shown Jonathan Taylor's subtle progression, where all of a sudden, as opposed to just diving through the hole and getting 3 yards, he's taking a second to read and actually penetrating the hole that he should be. And it's talking about how his visibility is improving. He just came off an offseason where, there was COVID. He had no chance to actually practice. The offensive line is underperforming. Phillip Rivers needs to go. The man is trash. And all of their offensive weapons outside of Jonathan Taylor are injured, right? Like that, Michael Pittman Jr., who's the Paris Campbell, T.Y. Hilton. They have no other weapons, so he's seeing stacked boxes all the time. And so, I mean, he was dealing with an injury last week. I do believe that going into next season, he has a full year to recover. I mean, they drafted him so high, they're not just going to abandon him, right? And I
No.
believe that as he improves, as he should improve, and as he learns more about the game, has a full offseason, I think he's going to be a beast next season. And for me personally, the man has a cake playoff schedule, like just an absolutely cake playoff schedule. So we'll see what ends up happening with him. And then Marquise Hollywood Brown is another player that I bought low, where I don't think he's ever going to see a lot of targets, but he was a first-round pick. He is so incredibly talented, and I do believe that Lamar Jackson is just going to continue to improve as a passer moving forward. So we'll see, man. It's possible that both Jonathan Taylor and Hollywood are busts, right? That is entirely possible. But the way I see it, I at least believe in the talent enough that I was willing to get rid of my favorite player on my team and go for him.
You said that, not me.
Yeah.
You said you got rid of your favorite player. Wow, that's absolutely nuts. I will say, now that you brought up the whole Saquon comparison, do you remember what the issue was with Saquon coming out and into his rookie season, what the concerns were?
I don't remember, only because he came out and dominated in fantasy. So I don't even remember anything negative.
This is what people said he needs to improve, because he has that elite ability, but people said he struggled in between the tackles because at Penn State, all he would do, I don't want to say all he would do, but he made his living off of big runs.
Yeah.
He would, and he would just kind of bang it in a little bit, and then eventually he would just bounce it out and beat someone to the corner. And once he hits the corner, you're not catching him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if you are catching him, he's hurdling you. So the biggest thing between year 1 and year 2 Saquon was that he was willing to hit the holes inside vision-wise.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Instead of just relying – and you see this a lot happen in college athletes that go from high school to college, the kids that are just so much faster than everyone. They immediately think in college that they can just bounce everything. But they forget that in college, everyone's fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they can't bounce as much. And I think that that's something we're going to see with Jonathan Taylor over the time is he didn't necessarily bounce as much, but he had a dominant offensive line in front of him at Wisconsin every single year. And so I think – and he still does. Colts offensive line is top 5 in the NFL, and it is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we're going to see with Jonathan Taylor is that he's really going to be able to find his way through the progression and just learn an NFL offense. It's just so different. So I like the Jonathan Taylor. I think it really helps your team, especially post
Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. Marquise Brown, I think, and this is how I phrased it to you, it's how I phrased it to Nino. Terry McLaurin is the best player in the trade. It then goes Jonathan Taylor, and then at this point in time, Marquise Brown is the better prospect than Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
And so you traded the top player for the 2 middle-tier guys, and you gave up the low-tier guy.
Yeah.
And we talked about this. Ravens just got to get some help in the passing game at the receiver position. It's just not going to go well if they continue to have Marquise Brown as their number 1 receiver on the outside. You need Marquise Brown to be playing in the slot when you have athletes to both sides to him. Like right now, it's just not working. For example, if Chris Godwin doesn't get re-signed by the Bucs for whatever reason, the Ravens should be trying to get Chris Godwin and throwing whatever money possible at the guy, especially while you still have Lamar, J.K. Dobbins, and so many guys on rookie contracts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No,
that's just something I would be looking at.
That'd be awesome. Because, dude, you're right. Every passing play, like, who else are they going to throw to? Willie Snead, right? Like, they know
exactly.
They can lock him down, so it's tough.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, dude, I like it. Those are the trades. Again, one of my favorite things about this league is that we do trade so much. Let's quickly go down and break down every single player, talk about their team, talk about what we'd recommend, and then kind of predict the future for each team. So we're going to start with Team Sam. Now, he is first in points against, which is a brutal position to be in. And he has a very solid team. But going into the season, I did make a couple predictions. One of them was that he was going to have quarterback struggles because his 2 starting quarterbacks were Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, who are good, but neither of them are elite. And I said he was going to struggle a little bit with depth, which we're seeing even this week where, Devontae Parker is not in his lineup. He's had, as you can see, many injuries to his team, and he just doesn't have a solid, backup to fill those roster spots. And then what really devastated him, of course, was the Christian McCaffrey injury. I think he's not a 1-7 team. He's not a 1-8 team. But without CMC, without your first round pick, you're left for dead unless you have some crazy backups.
Yeah, and another thing is like Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
The Dallas offense has been decimated. I know so many people that did Dallas stacks between getting Dak Prescott, even Dak Prescott, Zeke, and then Amari Cooper. Those two, and any type of combination of Dallas stacks, because you bought into the offensive line, you bought into Dak Prescott, you bought into no more. Is it Coach Garrett? That's now with the Giants, new coaching staff. Kellen Moore's kind of taken over offensively speaking.
Yeah.
And so I think that really hurts because Amari Cooper's just so hit and miss, like he had 6 targets today.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still playing right now, but he only has 6 targets today. He dropped, his 2 games over 20 points. But even it's just, that offense has just struggled, especially after the offensive line injuries and the quarterback injuries. But not that he's not a good player, and he's so young. He's only 26, and it feels like he's been in the league for so long. Yeah. But this year in particular has been unfortunate. And you can say the same thing about Adam Thielen. So hot and cold. There have been some games where Adam Thielen's exploded. Week 1 explodes. Weeks 4 and 5 explode. But then you get the 5-pointers, and Adam Thielen is much closer to Tyler Lockett type of play where you're going to get a 40-point boom and then a 6-point game than he is to a consistent 15 to 20 receiver that you're looking for, especially with how early he took him. And I will say Adam Thielen just doesn't really make sense for his team's makeup because he has Adam Thielen, he has Amari Cooper, young, but then it just feels like his team just needs more youth. I think Jerry Jeudy is a great way that he started it. Yeah. But if I'm him, I'm maybe even looking to see if there's, at this point, especially with him, it's like, all right, I'm not making the playoffs. I'm gearing up for next year. It's like, all right, who can I wheel and deal to get some young guys that aren't playing, some young guys that are maybe hurt, or get some draft picks and start trying to build towards where you want to be. Because I think as a whole, he has some decent pieces, but it's just, you got to be able to kind of put it together. I think Tua is going to be so jealous of that pick. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's going to be a great value pick. Yeah, no, Sam's team definitely, I think they do have a bright future. If I was him right now, I would be trying to sell Gurley. That's what I personally would do. And Gurley is, he is 26 years old. He has the knee injuries in the past, but he has just been getting so much goal line work and scoring so many touchdowns that I know personally of multiple teams in the league right now that are 1 RB2 away from making a legit playoff run, right? So if he can sell Gurley and get a 2nd round pick and a piece, right, or something like that, I would be doing that no-brainer because he's just, again, he has CMC and he has Kenyon Drake on his team. And so he has, decent running back depth. But if I'm him, of course you're playing for next season. So I'd be selling a couple different older pieces to get that. This is the real question for you. And this is kind of a tough one to ask. But if you're him, are you selling Christian McCaffrey right now to sell out of this season and to get as many picks or as many depth players as he needs moving forward?
As someone, yeah. I think you're at least entertaining the thought.
Okay, interesting.
And obviously it would have to be something that really sets your team up. But like I said, I think he just needs a youth infusion.
Yeah.
And so I think I would entertain it. But, for me to sell Christian McCaffrey, I would have to look at that and be like, you are overpaying. Okay, I'll take it. Yep. I'm not taking a fair trade on Christian McCaffrey. I'm taking you are overpaying because of what you're getting.
Yep.
And I know he's been hurt. That none of that matters to me. Like, you're getting a guy that when he's done playing running back will go play slot receiver.
Yeah.
He's going to be he is the next Adrian Peterson in terms of how long he's going to play. I think Christian McCaffrey has the ability to play for mid-30s, legitimately with his play style. And ankle injuries, because there's high ankle sprain he had, correct?
Yeah, high ankle sprain, and then today some kind of rib injury, but it didn't seem major.
And those when it's not, high ankle injuries, not something you want to be dealing with, obviously, but when it's not knee injuries in particular, I'm feeling fantastic about it.
Well, look, he put up 37 fantasy points today. right? He came
Yeah.
back from the high ankle sprain and dominated. So if I'm Sam, I'm right with you. There's no way I'm trading CMC unless someone's offering me like an elite quarterback, multiple first round picks. There's just not. I'm not even considering it. He's only 24 years old, and he is the centerpiece of his team. He's going to be his entire future is right here. There's no way I'm even considering it if I'm him. He just updated his team name.
Two of these nuts.
That is awesome. A live reaction for him updating his team. But overall, that's Sam's team. Bright future ahead if he can get a couple picks and draft well and get a little bit more depth. Next, we have Zach, which is going to be an interesting one. My quick reaction with Zach is that I totally disrespected his DK Metcalf pick, where I was kind of like, all right, we'll see what happens. And then Metcalf comes out and is the wide receiver 3 on the season, wide receiver 4 right now in the season before this game's counted, where he does have one game in the single digit points, but everything else has been 14 points or more. Freak of nature, proving everybody wrong. You pair him with Russell Wilson for the next 5 to 10 years. I was listening to a podcast recently, and they were arguing that DK Metcalf should be the wide receiver 1 in upcoming upcoming Dynasty startup drafts. That's how much they believed in him. They said, take him over Devontae Adams, take him over that tier. That's how good he is and how young he is. The kid's 22 years old. He's my age, man. And he's like a head taller than me, solid, and every year he seems to be getting better and better. And so I was telling Zach, hold on to Metcalf, or I will give you something ridiculous to get him because he is legit in my eyes, for sure. What are your thoughts on Metcalf?
That's someone I would trade Saquon for, and I would highly consider doing it just straight up.
Yeah. He's a beast. He is a beast.
I mean, he went to the perfect place. The only other place I could imagine that would have been better for DK Metcalf to go is maybe Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I think Pittsburgh would have been fun.
Yeah.
Or after knowing that they were going to sell DeAndre Hopkins, I think him with Deshaun Watson would have been a lot of fun. Him and Will Fuller would have made a great tandem. But DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Russell Wilson,
30.
They are the best offense in the NFL right now.
Yeah, no, they are ridiculous. He's someone that's going to be great for a while now. And so with Zach's team in particular, he is a team that my advice to him is he has to stay the course, right? His quarterbacks are middle tier. He got rid of Drew Brees. So, he has Baker, who's been mediocre, Marcus Mariota, who's not even starting, and then Phillip Rivers, Ryan Tannehill. So middle tier. He definitely could use a quarterback upgrade overall. But this grouping of three players I'm so excited for, right? Antonio Gibson came in. Everyone was so excited about him, especially after they cut all their former running backs, right? He has a bright future ahead. Justin Jefferson's in his first year and is balling out. He's the wide receiver 21 right now on the season, and he's 21 years old and didn't have a training camp, right? And so there's just all these – and Chase Claypool, oh my gosh, another one who's just absolutely balling out. He has so much youth on his team that if I'm him, I'm just sitting there like, all right, that's okay. I don't care that I'm going to lose this. I don't care that I'm 2-6, right? Next season, I'm going to ball out. Specifically, I wanted to pull up week 6, right? Week 6, I think we got a window into Zach's team's potential, right? Week 6, he put up 184 points. And Derrick Henry went off, right? Chase Claypool went off. DeAndre Swift went off. Justin Jefferson went off. He had 184 points without DK Metcalf, right? This is the potential for Zach's team. So, Zach, if you're watching this, stay the course, man. Your team is going to be so damn good starting next season.
And especially because Zeke comes back behind a healthy O-line and a quarterback situation that's going to get figured out.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, Chase Claypool, DK Metcalf, Mike Evans, those four as your top 4 receivers.
Yeah.
And then you get DeAndre Swift coming in. You still have Hunter Renfrow, which is Laviska Shenault is a stud. It's just a matter of Jacksonville really figuring out what the hell they want to do with their quarterback situation and what they're going to do. But as someone that owns DJ Chark, I am banking on either a Tua or I'm banking on a Justin Fields, man.
Okay.
And that completely changes how that offense can operate.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then I do think where Zach's gonna love this season. I'm not sure how aware you are of their upcoming rookie class, but there are as many as 3. I would say legitimately 3 tight ends that could go in the top 30 picks.
Wow, I was not.
Particularly, I hate that I'm saying this. I don't even want to say it, but particularly, I mean, y'all are gonna know about him anyways. Particularly Kyle Pitts out of Florida.
Yeah.
You don't know about this guy?
No.
Oh my God, what am I doing?
I've heard of his name, but yeah.
I mean, Kyle Pitts is like a he plays like Travis Kelce.
That's awesome.
He's just a big,
Secret's
and I
out
think
now, man.
What'd you say?
The secret's out now.
I mean, you're gonna know. I mean, you're gonna see these tight ends go in the first round, and you're gonna be like, "Wow!" Last year was a very tight end low draft. This year, a lot of top end tight ends coming out. Kyle Pitts being one of them. I think he probably ends up being a top 8 pick.
Interesting.
In our draft, and if not, I will pick him.
I like it. And so for Zach in particular, has a great future here. And dude, I mean, if he finishes 2, let's say he wins a couple more games, if he really pushes and gets, he's going to have a high pick. I would be surprised if he can't get a Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Fields going into next season. And that's just going to make his team stacked. Right? That's going to make his team stacked if that all comes together. Next, we have your team, and I want to talk about this a little. My quick analysis is you have a very solid team, a little bit hit or miss. The Saquon loss was devastating, right? Anytime you lose your first-round pick, it is going to be tough. I have here that, I mean, CeeDee Lamb was balling before the Dak Prescott injury, absolutely balling. And, man, you and I have talked about this so many times. You have so much great youth on your team that you just kind of have to stay the course, right? Like this starting lineup that you currently have outside of your quarterback situation is not indicative of what your team's going to look like a year from now, right? You're not going to be starting Gus Edwards and Ronald Jones. You have DJ Chark, got married, balling out, right? Looks so
good. I'm telling you, he got married during his bye week, and I saw that. I go, that's the best thing I've seen all year. Because I'm like, dude, what happened to DJ Chark? But weddings are stressful, especially with COVID and everything. He gets married. It's like, dude, go ball now. You don't worry about wedding planning when you get off work. Boom, go play football, catch a 75-yard touchdown.
That's awesome. And I think the casual fantasy football player looking at your team will be like, oh, he doesn't even have – like the casual player will not be impressed with the players you have on your bench. But someone who has been watching football for a little while knows the potential of both Darrell Henderson, Rashad Penny, and Cam Akers, right? They know the potential of those 3. They know they saw a little bit into the window of the potential with Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman before they got injured. They saw how good CeeDee Lamb was. Dude, Travis Fulgham is currently was the wide receiver 1 in fantasy from weeks 4 to 8, right? Over that month, he has been so good. He looks great out there, man. So there's just all these such under the radar. Brian Edwards, another great example of a rookie coming in, getting hurt. You and I talked about this the other day. They get to take a step back and learn and develop while they're injured. So they're going to come back even stronger. People are going to be shocked. And I'm not just saying this because you and I are doing the video. But I do think people are going to be shocked in a year from now, the sneaky, legitimate offensive weapons you have in your flex spots. For sure, dude, for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about my team. I'm going to be, as everyone that I hope is in the league, I'm openly going to be shopping Saquon. His price only gets more and more expensive as we move along into the offseason, because that just means he's closer and closer to his ACL being recovered.
Yeah.
But Clyde Edwards-Helaire is hopefully going to take over that backfield after this year. I'm actually really happy that Le'Veon signed there because I think he can learn a lot from Le'Veon.
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater and Kyler Murray have been phenomenal. I mean, today combined, they put up 70 points.
Yeah, 70 points. Oh, my gosh.
And DJ Moore definitely has been a hit or miss for me. It's probably been my more frustrating aspect of Carolina. But I just think that also comes with time, and I think Robbie Anderson's just looked phenomenal, and I can't deny that.
Yeah.
Will Fuller, I got super late. I've been very happy with. He's been turning out wide receiver 1 type of performances for me. consistently has, and that's the thing with Will Fuller. No one wanted to draft him because he gets hurt a lot. But when he's healthy, he's awesome.
Yeah. Especially with D-Hop gone. He's getting targets, dude. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's fantastic. So I'm really excited about my team. You know, this week I'm going to score maybe 160 or so.
Against me, of course. Last week you put up
scroll down to DJ Chark, 12 targets.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I know. DJ Chark, 12 targets. See, that's kind of production I'm looking for. But I'm excited. This is definitely a shell of what my team can be and what my team is capable of.
Yeah.
But I definitely think moving into – honestly, this year, I just enjoy watching my youth guys learn.
Yeah.
And going from there. If I win, awesome. If not, we'll go from there.
Yeah.
But I got a first-round pick and two second-round picks right now, and a third-round pick still so far. So I'm up in terms of net picks. I'm up one.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be right around that 7 spot to get that first overall pick, which I would be – if I get first overall pick, dude, it's going to be dangerous.
It's dangerous because I think my only criticism of your team up to this point is just your quarterback depth, right? You literally just have these two guys and Garrett Gilbert, who actually played decently well today. But that's the one criticism of your team, right? We all know your player's going to develop. I was thinking as soon as Le'Veon Bell got traded, I was like, oh man, this might be a dynasty buy low window for Clyde. And if the people watching, if in their league, the Clyde owner is feeling they're going for a championship right now, and now
exactly
buying Clyde, that's what you have to do. Because like you said, he's just going to learn from one of the best running backs in the league right now, at least from experience-wise. So if you get a top pick and get a top-tier quarterback, like it's not going to be fun for other players in the league, in my opinion. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. Awesome, man. I like it. Next, we have Nick Kaludis, which is the team I think you initially had winning the championship. I don't know if I remember correctly, but this team is really, really interesting to me. And this is one of the teams that really proved to me that having elite quarterback play can help you dominate this league, right? Like if you look at his running back situation, Leonard Fournette was out of a job right before the season, who was one of his earlier picks. Austin Eckler had that hammy injury, right? Who else? I had a list of just players that Michael Thomas, his first-round pick, got hurt, right? You see time and time again. Chris Carson currently injured, right? T.Y. Hilton injured, Alshon Jeffrey, Sammy Watkins, right? All these players he had on his team are injured, and he's still 4-4 because Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are putting up a total of 60, 70 points each week, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who else he has.
You need
ahead.
2 or 3 guys. I think Lamar and Josh Allen are 2 of the best. It's the best quarterback combo in the league.
Yeah, I agree. Until I get Dak back and I have Mahomes and Dak, and then it's game over for everyone else.
You can trade me Burrow.
Hey, man, Burrow, as you know, is on the trading block, always. Always on the trading block.
He doesn't know.
I want to specifically highlight this for Nick's team. I think he is a sneaky team right now who is currently 5th over. No, he's currently 7th right now. He's currently not even in a playoff spot. He is a sneaky team to make a playoff push for a championship. And this is why, right? He's going to have his amazing quarterback tandem. He's going to have Austin Eckler come back, who should be solid. He's going to have Chris Carson come back. So all of a sudden his running backs are legit. He's going to have Keenan Allen, who's absolutely balling with Herbert under center. He's going to have Michael Thomas as his wide receiver. Then he's going to have Lockett and, whatever other players he wants to fill in, right? He has enough, at least mediocre depth pieces to fill in on that front. But that top 7 positions of Lamar, Josh Allen, Eckler, Chris Carson, Keenan Allen, Lockett, and Michael Thomas is so dirty. Like that is elite. So he's a team that I would not sleep on, right? He's not currently in the playoffs, but I'm not sleeping. I play him.
If he makes the playoffs, he can win the whole thing depending on how his matchups go. Because his week to week can be a little up and down for him. And we see that reflect. That's why he's last in the 4-4 tiebreaker. Because there's some weeks he scores a lot and some weeks he doesn't. But when his team hits, it's like Zach's team. it's just like, holy moly, dude, you got a squad.
Yeah.
But it's the Lamar Jackson, and if Baltimore decides to start playing Baltimore football and like moving, like Lamar Jackson combined for 228 total yards today, which is not a lot.
No. I mean, look
not
at
for where you draft him at, like 14th overall quarterback right now. But just has struggled getting off the floor. Just that offense as a whole has just really just struggled, especially in comparison to what they did last year.
Yeah, this is 2019, and just looking at his carries, right? His carries are just nothing are in a completely different league than it is this past year. He's less efficient through the air, right? He didn't really have a lot of big yardage games last season even, but my biggest concern for Lamar Jackson, and I don't know if this is true, I'm not going to pretend to be some NFL guru, but I have heard people say that it is possible that Lamar's MVP year, he took the league by surprise. People didn't know how to contain him, right? And now they've had a year of tape of him balling, and you see these defenses shut him down, right? Where he still is going to rush for a couple touchdowns every year, right? But it seems that he's not as dominant as last season. So I don't know if he's just still developing. I don't know if it is defensive strategy or a combination of the both. I'm not going to call him a bust by any stretch of the means. He was MVP last season, but we'll see, man. That's one of those that was kind of a coin toss.
I will say on Lamar Jackson, this is the first year, probably in his entire life, I will say, but his first year since he got to college, played at Louisville, that he has regressed from the season before. Because even the year he won the Heisman, the year after he won the Heisman, statistically was better than the year that, the year after the Heisman was better than the year before. He just didn't win it twice. And then he comes on his rookie year, didn't play a whole lot because Joe Flacco, but then played last year and was even better. So if you're looking at it, stocks wise, and it's going up like this and then he takes right back down, it's bound to go back up. It's just a matter of Baltimore adjusting. And again, I've said Baltimore has not, and this was my issue with Cam Newton in Carolina, they did not put the proper playmakers around Cam Newton to be able to succeed. You have Devin Funches. Devin Funches played tight end at Michigan in college. He is not a receiver. He needs – Lamar Jackson is one, like I said, Chris Godwin type of receiver, a Keenan Allen type of receiver away from – or even I would say those two in particular, like type of receiver, away from really taking this offense to the next level. And that's when you'll see Lamar improve. Because they have all the pieces. They have the run game figured out. The offensive line is taking a minute to kind of, especially with Ronnie Stanley out now. They lost Marshall Yanda due to retirement. So I think this is a building year for Baltimore, more so than a boom year, which is unfortunate. But I think it's just the reality. They're going to continue to win games because their defense is good. And their offense is tough to stop as a whole. But fantasy-wise, I think this is a grooming year, and I don't see Baltimore as a team that makes a deep run into the playoffs in the NFL in particular.
Interesting. So at least from my perspective, for those watching in other leagues, because I don't know if Nick will trade him, another great buy low candidate, right? If there's these whispers of Lamar Jackson is a bust, right? He's being exposed right now. I just don't think that's true. I think I'm with you where I think he's still developing. If you can get him for for a reasonable price, I'd do it. I'd shoot a couple trade offers just to test the waters. Advice for Nick, I think this man is one piece away from winning a championship. I really do. I think we just named off those top 7 players that are elite. His depth is still a little bit questionable, right? If we can just get, improvement on the tight end front, because I'm not the biggest fan of his tight ends, even though I like Albert O potentially down the future maybe, because Noah Fant is such a piece. But he just has he needs like one more piece, one wide receiver 2, one, middle tier, a Todd Gurley, right? Get him a Todd Gurley who's going to put up a couple 20-point games, and I think he has a legitimate shot at a championship. Next, we have the team that we must talk about. This is Trey's team. I'm going to go ahead and just be blunt with it. The fantasy gods hate Trey. I don't know what he did. I'm not sure did he kick a puppy or something? I don't know what happened. but like he has struggled with so many injuries this season. It's ridiculous. I had to write down a list because it's ridiculous. He lost Raheem Mostert twice. He lost OBJ. He lost Kittle. He lost Deebo Samuel. He lost Gardner Minshew. He lost Tariq Cohen, and he lost Miles Sanders. Right? Like he lost seven different players. Like it's just unreal. Like honestly, the other players on his team, we need to call them and warn them because they're in danger, right? Their careers are in danger because they're on Trey's team. It's just ridiculous. But that being said, he's still 4-4, right? He still had enough depth in his team. He made that trade where he got Miles Sanders and AJ Brown that he's been able to pull together a couple solid wins. Overall for him, dude, he's in the playoff contention, but my advice to him, I'm looking to next season, right? I'm looking to next season just because of the injury, right? Jared, it's going to be really tough to compete with the top tier teams that we're about to talk about without Kittle, without OBJ, without Raheem Mostert, right? Without Deebo. Like it's just going to be brutal. Anyways, what's your advice? Well, what's your perspective so far on Trey's team, and what would you recommend to him?
I think perspective-wise, I think he hit. It's nice for him. He doesn't really have to worry about his quarterbacks. Matt Ryan is, no matter how you feel about him, always going to put up points. And he's locked, unless if he retires, he is locked in to be Atlanta's quarterback for the next 3 years due to contract alone.
Yeah.
And honestly, Matt Ryan looks pretty good. He, it may be suspect. They may throw some games because I don't know what's wrong. The Georgia curse in Atlanta is terrible. But I mean, he's a top 10 quarterback right now. And when he has a dominant receiving core, a solid tight end. Even the backups at receiver are fantastic. And, and so his quarterbacks are solid. His receiver depth, when healthy, is solid, and he gets Antonio Brown. If I'm being honest, if Antonio Brown pops off this week, is trade deadline next week?
Trade deadline is week 10. Yep. So next week, yeah.
Is it Wednesday at a certain time? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top. I'll have to double check because I'm pretty
before
sure.
Thursday games. Before the Thursday night game? Okay. Yeah. So let's just say Wednesday at noon Eastern. If Antonio Brown pops off, I think I'm shopping him to a team even like Nick Kaludis.
Yeah.
Or a team
out of my mouth. Yeah. You took it out of my mouth. Yeah.
A team that could really use the 1 year guy, because who knows what Antonio Brown's got after this year.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm looking for. But if I'm Trey's team, I don't know if he's going to win or not. But this team is not winning in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. Too many injuries, man. Just too many
injuries. And it's not anything against his team. It's just too many injuries. And the running back depth, the fact that you got to start Frank Gore every single week. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. But I mean, I think Deontay Johnson down the stretch. I mean, Deontay Johnson had 10 targets today.
Dude, Deontay Johnson's target total is ridiculous this season. 10, 13, 15, 10. Like when he's healthy, he is seeing so many targets. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And there's so many players on Trey's team that I love, right? His depth at wide receiver. That's why I can't recommend enough that he trades AB if AB pops off right now. Because honestly, players like my team, I feel like I could use AB, right? Nick's team, Nick Kaludis, that you and I were just talking about, who needs that extra player, and he can get, a couple picks for him or an additional player. Trey's team needs two things: a running back, right? So he may be another player that he reaches out to Sam, try to get Gurley, even though Gurley's more of a 1 to 2 year thing more than a long-term thing. And two, I would be shooting for picks if I was him at this point, and then try to get a running back on that front, because his running back core is definitely lacking. Like you said, he started Frank Gore, but he has so many young, amazing wide receivers on his team that I love. Like this stretch right here of T. Higgins, Henry Ruggs, Mecole Hardman, Deebo Samuel. I would love to have anyone on that list on my team. Any of those four. Yeah. Right? Any of those
four are awesome moving forward.
And so if I'm Sam, right, and I know that Trey needs a running back, or if I'm honestly any running team that has enough running back depth, I'm reaching out to Trey and say, hey, man, I want T. Higgins. I want Mecole Hardman. I don't care who. Depends on the running back tier, and going after one of these guys and trying to balance out his lineup a little bit so he doesn't have to start Frank Gore and Devin Singletary. I am going to go ahead and highlight your and Trey's matchup in
You
week
have
8
to.
because we have to, right? We have to. And this is, once again, just highlights the importance of depth in the league, right? He literally, his only quarterback he had to start was Matt Ryan because Watson and Minshew were both. But Minshew was on bye, and so was Watson. So he picked up Taysom Hill, and of course, Taysom Hill does this twice a season. He just so happened to get lucky. He catches the touchdown, right? And that totally shifted the momentum in this game. I mean, I think he still would have won without him if my math is right, but maybe not.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but it would have been so close otherwise. I mean, it was close regardless. Yeah. Anyways, just another reason to highlight how important quarterback depth is in this league, for sure.
Oh yeah, because like I said, Ben DiNucci, not who you want to be starting.
The GOAT. All right, Nick LeBoon. Now this is I'm going to preface with this once again. This is a team that I think everyone's sleeping on, right? This is a team that I think right now currently is being super disrespected and is very, very sneaky. Right now, Nick LeBoon's team is 4th in the league in points scored, right? And I don't think that's being highlighted very much, just how well his team has done up to this point. Let's see what I have written down here. Like he just, I was texting him and he said he had a scrappy team. He's like, we just put it together every weekend. He's saying something about how he gives them motivational locker room talks. I was like, hey man, it's panning out. This is another team that I think should reach out to Trey and go grab AB because I think they have a legitimate shot at making a playoff run. It might not look like it right now, but he has 2 top 12 dynasty quarterbacks, in my opinion. Justin Herbert is balling, right? He is balling right now. I was listening to a podcast recently, and they said if you were in a dynasty startup right now and Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert were the top 2 quarterbacks, who would you take? And the guy paused. Like he was that. He genuinely didn't know because of how well Justin Herbert's playing. And which, that's up to your own personal definition, but it's interesting to see that he's in that tier. This is what I wanted to highlight is that he has Joe Mixon coming back in. So his starting lineups could be Joe Mixon, David Montgomery, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Cooks, and then he's really lacking the depth here. He, of course, Cortland Sutton was injured, who's his wide receiver 1. He has Jalen Reagor, who Zach dropped. Zach dropped Jalen Reagor.
And see, but that's what blows my mind. Zach probably drafted out of all, I mean, I went rookie heavy, but he drafted the best rookie receivers between
Claypool,
Justin Jefferson, Claypool,
Reagor, DK Metcalf.
DK Metcalf's, sophomore.
Yeah.
But who else did he have? Chenault.
Yeah, Chenault.
And then he just dropped Reagor, and I go, Zach, what are you doing? And I tried to put all of my money in for him, and I didn't have enough.
Yeah, me neither.
I was like, wow, I can't believe that's just dropping a bomb on the league, being like, here, fetch, type of thing. No, I think especially with Reagor coming in, it really changes the complexion of his team. Brandon Cooks has started to come along nicely for him. Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill. Mark Andrews is the one pick that's hurting him, but again, that's just a consequence of. But, man, his snap counts are just so low. And I think a large part of that – when you look at last year's snap counts –
yeah, absolutely.
Because he looks like he's averaging about 60%.
This is even worse. So his last year's
even worse.
Slightly lower, yeah.
And this is my issue with Mark Andrews is he right now when he's on the field is like, oh, Mark Andrews is in. He's the one getting the ball through the air. Yeah. And he's getting the most attention. You can't let your tight end be the guy getting the most attention. Yeah. In the passing game. That's what's killing his ceiling at this point in time. He's so touchdown dependent. All of his games that he scored that he plays well are touchdown dependent. Week 1 and 2, over 20 points, touchdown. Week 4, over 10 points, touchdown. Week 10, 2 touchdowns. He's just such a touchdown dependent guy, which is nothing bad, nothing wrong with it. But right now, that offense just does not flow well enough to get him consistent looks. It's nothing on his talent level. It's nothing on I don't think it's any indictment on that. I mean, I'm the first one to say Mark Andrews is awesome.
Yeah, he's a bomb.
But that pick in particular is really hurting his team this year. Yeah. Because imagine what his team would look like if Mark Andrews was putting up 80% of the points that he was putting up last year. Yeah. Because right now, Mark Andrews really doesn't put that up for him. It really hurts him week to week.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's just his flex. It's just a crapshoot every
Yeah.
single week.
So
But
this is, I mean, from my advice to him, right? Because he's going to have, what's his name? Joe Mixon. He's going to have Joe Mixon and David Montgomery as his running backs. Tyreek Hill, Brandon Cooks, all right. Those are solid enough. Mark Andrews can kind of make it. If he has Rager and then trades Trey a second-round pick for like Henry Ruggs, right? I don't know if that's a trade that Trey would even make.
Dude, Antonio Brown.
Or Antonio Brown, right? If he can get Antonio Brown and then just
Antonio Brown, Todd Gurley type of ordeal.
Yeah, something like that. If he can get either of those two players and then just have an X player in his, he's got enough mediocre players like a Gallup or an Gage or a Anthony Miller who will put up, around 10 points, even though it's not very safe, then I think he has a legit chance to make a push. He has a legit chance to make a push for sure. So we'll see. Again, a team I think is being disrespected.
It goes back to your point. Another team that when you have an awesome quarterback combo, you're going to win a lot of weeks.
Yeah, that's true.
Even if the rest of your team's kind of just like, we're putting it together, but I got my two quarterbacks, you know?
Yeah. Dude, again, I mean, I'm just going to keep saying it. That's why I traded for Dak. And I think we'd be having a much different conversation if Dak was healthy and still the quarterback won. I'd probably – anyways, that's my mini rant for right now. Next, we have an excellent team that we have to highlight. Nino going into this season, I was so mad. I told him that I did not like his team a lot. Right? I told him that I thought because of his quarterbacks, because of everything and his lack of depth pieces, I was not a big fan of his team at the very beginning of the season. Now, he is in fourth place, 5-3. He has had the least amount of points against him, which is not – I'm not saying –
Other than Nick LeBoon.
Other than Nick LeBoon. Yeah, both of those teams, right? Yeah, he's second to last, right? Second to last. So I'm not saying that against his team. I'm saying that has clearly worked in his favor to get to 5-3. But I will say this. I have loved the moves he has made up to this point, right? He got Drew Brees, so we got a quarterback starting this year. He's going to have Dobbins and David Johnson, as long as David Johnson is okay, as his running backs who should be good down the stretch. And in my opinion, because of the trades he's made, he has the best wide receiving core in the league right now, where he has DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin, and then Christian Kirk, who just keeps balling out, right? These 5 players right now are outside of Christian Kirk are all arguably top 15 wide receivers in dynasty formats, right? Just because how old they are, because of how well they produce. Like his flex is just so deep that it's crazy. I mean, Darren Waller, like he doesn't – because of the trades he's made, his weakest spot right now is running back. And who really cares if Dobbins and David Johnson are going to get him 10 points, right? And Dobbins could even go off. So I like the moves he's made a lot. And and that was one thing that I texted. I was like, man, if I trade you Terry McLaurin, you're going to have the best wide receiving core in the league. And I do firmly believe that. And we saw it this past weekend, right? Where each one of them put up 20 points except for D-Hop. But how often is that going to happen, right? Not very often. So anyways, Nino is a team that I was low on going in, but he's turned it around in my opinion. He looks good. He looks good.
Yeah, my favorite part is Nino's receivers, and like we've said, he's just buying. I know Nino's thought process before he even has to explain it to me. I know exactly. I've been negotiating with him for a while now. My entire life. So I know where his mindset's at and a lot of his moves, and he's just thinking, next year I'll just draft a running back or I'll draft a quarterback, and I'll just keep on going from there. I will say he's banking on Jameis getting a shot in a camp next year, which I can't blame him because I do think Jameis is going to get a shot. We scroll down a little bit though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jameis and Crowder is a great bye week fill-in. Curtis Samuel, man, had 12 touches today and went for 26 points. Curtis Samuel is even better when Christian McCaffrey is in the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He is a great He's a great Pippen to Michael Jordan type of player, because very similar builds, very similar attributes. It's just Curtis Samuel is a little bit smaller, plays receiver. Chris McCaffrey plays running back. That's literally because Curtis Samuel played at Ohio State, stud. I mean, torched Big Ten defenses.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's going to be
He's
something
so
that is going to
fast.
really
Yeah, he's
go
so
ahead.
he's just
So
so
fast,
fast, man. Yeah.
unbelievable.
Mhm.
It's unbelievable. He's got wheels and he's not afraid of contact.
Yeah.
And he's kind of always been in this position limbo, not really knowing exactly where to go. I think Curtis Samuel is going to be awesome for Nino down the stretch. It's like a bye-week fill-in.
Yeah.
And then you get down lower. Like if Chris Godwin goes anywhere, Tyler Johnson's shown that he can ball.
Yeah.
Gabriel Davis had a very nice day today. I was watching that game. I was like, wow, he looks good. He really looks good out of UCF. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised.
Mhm.
And then Scotty Miller, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Scotty Miller also, and he has OJ Howard too, still on IR. Scotty Miller as well. So he's as a Bucks fan, he's in on the Bucks offense. It's the one time where it's actually panning out, where to buy in on the Bucks.
Oh yeah.
But no, I really like Nino's team. I think he's got a solid makeup. His quarterback's just got to pan out, and he's just got to hit his running backs. Because he's going to keep playing the waivers on the running backs, and he's just got to hope that they pan out well enough to get him over the hump. But a Godwin, McLaurin, Diggs, D-Hop / Christian Kirk is disgusting.
Yeah, and then you add Darren Waller, who's a top 3 tight end right now. A top 2, I mean, if Kittle being hurt. So, his wide receiver down is insane. And if Dobbin hits, then he's going to be even better. So that's definitely a team that has a bright future and should do well this upcoming year. This is Atticus's team. Now, of course, he did trade Calvin Ridley and Dak Prescott to me. He has Dalvin Cook now, who is so good. He has arguably the best running back core in the league, and you can't see this right now because of bye weeks and injuries. But he has Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones, right? Aaron Jones, who has been balling this season when he was healthy. Still was hurt, and is still a top 6 running back right now. Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb. Where's Nick Chubb? Probably in his IR. Yeah, Nick Chubb. Like, he has those 3 who are arguably all top 12, if not top 10 running backs when they're on the field. So he's going to have that locked in. His quarterback situation's a little bit questionable, but, I mean, he does a very good job at streaming quarterbacks out of the 4 he currently has with Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, and then Cam and Daniel Jones. And then his wide receivers, man, Devontae Adams is so good. Like, the amount of targets this man is seeing is just unholy. Look, 17 to start the year, 10, 16, 11, 12. Like, he is getting so much volume and scoring so many touchdowns. He missed 2 weeks and is still the wide receiver 1 in all of fantasy. So it's just absolutely insane. His biggest struggle right now is his flex because of injury. He has Kenny Golladay, who is currently injured, and he should be back, though. Tyler Boyd has been a very sneaky pick. Tyler Boyd's the wide receiver 8. He's balling right now with Joe Burrow.
I love Tyler Boyd.
Me too.
I love Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, me too. It was really funny. When we were in the draft, I just had come home from partying with Zach. And I was sitting at my computer, and it was my pick. And, dude, I was incredibly buzzed at this point. Like, I was not in any state to be making dynasty picks. And Terry McLaurin and Tyler Boyd were in front of me, and I almost picked Tyler Boyd. But Trey and Nino both were blowing up my phone trying to get that pick to get Terry McLaurin. So I was like, okay, if there's a reason why they're this high on Terry McLaurin, I got to go for him. But the reason I even bring up this story is just to show how high I see Tyler Boyd, right, who's the wide receiver 8, only 25 years old. And you know how Joe Burrow, we all saw it at LSU. We all know how much he loves the slot, right? He balls with Justin Jefferson playing in the slot last season. So, when you look at Atticus's team, you put all that together. If Kenny Golladay comes back, he's really just missing.
It's extremely top heavy. Like, his heavy hitters are incredible.
Yeah.
That's what, his quarterback, this is the one team that is awesome, but doesn't have the knockout punches at quarterback. He has streaming options at quarterback, but it's his legitimate skill position players that win him games every single week. And that's what's scary about his team.
Yeah.
It's like dude, Devontae Dalvin they put up quarterback numbers almost every week.
Yeah.
And plus getting Nick Chubb back.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Golladay has been disappointing, but I think eventually Kenny Golladay to the Ravens. He's in a contract year. Kenny Golladay to the Ravens would be incredible. That is exactly the type of receiver I could see going to the Ravens. And that's a great thing about Dynasty. Imagine this team with that a receiver, and he just got Kenny Golladay, the number one receiver on his team, just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just stuff like that I think of. It's like, wow, that the transition carryover is fantastic. I would say, I mean, I really like his team. I think he's got fantastic depth for a big hitter. I just think he's one heavy hitting quarterback away from just blowing this whole league out of the water. Yeah. But thankfully for everyone else in the league, he's not really in a position to do that because he just streams whatever quarterbacks are going to come. He plays his roster like it's a one quarterback redraft league.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. Yeah.
He goes, I'm going to get a bunch of heavy hitters, and I'm just going to play whichever quarterbacks I like for the week out of the 4 I got. It's a fantastic strategy.
The man's 5-3, right? The man is 5-3. We can't really fight it. If I had to give any advice to Atticus at this point, you have two options really. One is just stay the course, right? I do think he can win a championship with the firepower he currently has on his roster. Or if I was him, I might look to move either Nick Chubb or Aaron Jones. And the only reason I point out those two in particular, they're both young, right? They're both, 25. I don't know how old Nick Chubb is. He is 24, right? So they're both not super young, but in that still their prime in their career. You have excellent starting running backs, and Chase Edmonds might be good next season if something happens to Drake and he doesn't come back. And I would look to move either one of these pieces to a team like Trey that needs running backs badly. And these players were drafted high, and they're so good on a week-to-week basis. I think he could get a solid haul for them, right? If he wants to get a little bit more depth, if he wants to take a middle-tier, up-and-coming wide receiver, or a couple of them even, and it might be another, like a lower-tier running back, I think he could turn Chubb into that if that's what he wants. But he'd have to find the right solution because, his running backs right now are dirty, to say the least. But, what do you think of that strategy?
Extremely. No, I really like his team the more and more I look at it. It's really, if I had to play his team in a week, I'd be like, wow, I need everything to go perfectly because he's guaranteed almost 150 points every single week.
I hate it so much.
Like, legitimately, his floor, that's what's so awesome about his team. His floor is so high.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's the thing. When you have a team like that, your floor is so high. Your ceiling may not be as high, but your floor is a minimum 130 points a week.
Yeah.
And a lot of the weeks, and then it comes down to, is he going to score 130? Is he going to score 180? Is he going to get pumped 200? It comes down to how his quarterbacks play.
Yeah.
And on all honesty. And I do think he may, if I could see, let me ask you, do you see Cam Newton getting benched this year?
I don't think they're going to bench him. I don't think they're going to bench him because I don't know exactly why they would, right? He's on this 1-year contract. Bill Belichick will never tank, right? Bill Belichick will have to get shot before he's going to say, oh, I'm going to plan to lose a game, right? That's just never been his strategy. It never will be. We know who Jarrett Stidham is, right? I feel like we know who Jarrett Stidham is, and we know who Brian Hoyer is. And I don't think –
we definitely know who Brian Hoyer is.
Yeah, we definitely know who Brian Hoyer is.
Definitely.
And I don't think the Patriots are going to – make any changes. I think Cam gives them the best chance to win right now. That's my perspective. Even though he's not that great. So we'll see, man. We'll see.
Subsequent question.
Yeah.
Who's the starting quarterback for – I'll give you options. It's multiple choice. Who's starting quarterback for the Patriots next year?
Okay.
Cam Newton?
Mm-hmm.
A free agent quarterback?
Okay.
Or a rookie?
That is a great question. I'd like to think a free agent, right? I would love to see something like that happen. I don't know if it will. Like, I would love if the Patriots could make a move on Jameis, right? I think that Jameis is talent under Belichick, and if we could get him a couple more offensive weapons, I think that could be a legit offense. Either that or a rookie. I think between those two options.
But you do not think it's going to be Cam Newton is what you're saying?
Not from what I've seen. Right now.
So is this Cam Newton's last year as a starting quarterback?
Oh, dude.
Or do you see him? Or do you see Cam Newton starting to fall into the Ryan Fitzpatrick territory of being the transition guy to a rookie? He's going to go to Jacksonville, play ahead of let's say a Justin Fields for a couple weeks, and then get overtaken. Do you think we're starting to see that territory for Cam Newton?
Dude, honestly, knowing Cam Newton, knowing that he's only 31 years old, and knowing his personality, like, I don't know if he'd put himself in a situation where that's even an option, right? I think he might retire before something, and maybe that's definitely a hot take. But he just seems to be someone with this chip on his shoulder who, like, just gets pissed off and has such, like, a crazy amount of pride. Like, I'm surprised that he's performing this way against the opponents they're facing. But again, he doesn't even have that great offensive weapons right now. So to answer your question, I have no idea. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
He might not have another.
I was just curious what your thoughts were coming from a Patriots fan.
I don't, because it's brutal watching those games right now. I don't enjoy it. I'll tell you right now. It's tough to be a Patriots fan.
Welcome to the 90% of America.
Yeah, exactly.
You lived in the upper 10% for a while. Welcome back down to earth.
I did, which is so funny because all my, like, friends and family who are Patriots fans are now Tampa Bay fans, where they're all cheering for Tom Brady. They're like, oh, we're Tom Brady fans, of course, because they're winning. Anyways, I refuse to jump on the bandwagon, and I'll die on the ship with the Patriots. We'll see. To answer your question, I don't really know. We'll see. But if that's the case, right, then he's going to need another quarterback for sure.
Because he has Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, who are going to be starters again next year. He has two for-sure starters. Mm-hmm. Daniel Jones gets at least one more year.
Yeah.
As a Giant. And then I think he gets one more year, and then they go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I could totally see that. We'll see. But regardless, I think he's one piece away.
His team is fantastic. Yeah, his team is fantastic.
Locked in. I don't look forward to playing him. Next, we have my team. And to, like, quickly sum up my team, I'm currently second in points scored, and I give all of that credit to my wide receiver depth, right? Those are the two things that I took from this league up to this point. Is having good quarterbacks is important, and then having a team of wide receivers that every week are locked into double-digit points. Right? Juju, of course, failed me on that week. But having my team back in week 6 when everyone was healthy, when no one was on their bye week, and that having that arsenal of Ridley, Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, Terry McLaurin, and Juju Smith-Schuster was a beautiful way to start up my lineup, and just gave me such a safe floor because I felt like each week that team was going to perform at least to a certain level. I still can't believe I'm about to lose to you. I'm still so mad about it. But this is the way I see and you and I were talking about this earlier, but my personal strategy is walking this very thin line of trying to do everything I can to win this season while still giving my team a beautiful chance at a future, right? At being dominant next season and the year after that, right? Because you look at what my team will look like down the road. You have Patrick Mahomes, you have Joe Burrow, you'll have Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs. And if Jonathan Taylor turns into the player I think he's going to be next season, then that duo is going to be fantastic. I'll have Calvin Ridley here, Allen Robinson, Hayden Hurst, who's been a great floor play that seems to give me double-digit points every single
top 10 tight end right now.
Yeah, exactly. Just because of the amount of targets he's not blowing up, but he's getting double-digit points every week. So
and that's with minimal touchdowns.
Yeah,
which is exactly what you want.
Yeah, he's just seeing that much volume on that team. And then I'll have Juju here, I'll have Robert Woods here, and then I'll have Kareem Hunt as my last flex spot. So that lineup, right, I won't have to play Zach Moss. I won't have to play Hollywood. That lineup I feel very confident in going into the championship. And then next season, I'll have Dak back, and then hopefully that will really care. And Jonathan Taylor going off in theory. So, dude, in all honesty, I'm really happy currently with where my team is sitting. I think right after Atticus, I think I have one of the best running back cores in the league, right? Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs are both top 10 Dynasty running backs, in my opinion, because they're both in their rookie contract. They're both 22 years old, right? And they both are workhorses for the most part. I think Jonathan Taylor will transition to that. And then I have Kareem Hunt, who's been a wide receiver 1 or a mid-tier wide receiver or a mid-tier running back 2 or better all season long. I have Hollywood as a future piece. I like my running backs, my backup running backs between LaMichael P. Ryan, who I think if Gaze leaves this season, and so does Gore, I think he's going to have some real opportunity next year. Josh Kelly, I was more excited about, but has not really lived up. I mean, again, still a rookie, but not a player has lived up to my expectations yet. And then I'm hoping Jordan Howard's goes somewhere else and actually get some carries because he's been a
See, that's what you say every single year. That's what everyone says every single year about Jordan Howard, though. I don't buy into Jordan Howard literally ever.
Decent with the Eagles, right? He was decent with the Eagles, and he was good enough with the Bears, right? Where he had a couple seasons where he was a decent. I mean, he was off and on, right? But he was getting good enough work with the Bears. So I don't know. Another player that probably is borderline droppable, but I refuse to drop a running back.
I don't blame you for
26.
He's definitely worth like the desperate.
Yeah.
I got to play someone. I got injuries. Just let's see. He's young. It seems like he's been in the year for so long, but he's young.
He is. Look at this. Look at his first 3 weeks. It was 7 yards, 4 yards, 1 yard, and a touchdown. Like he literally, that was his first 4 weeks of the season.
Goal line work.
And then they just stopped playing him until Myles Gaskins got hurt. So I don't know. But overall, I'm very happy with my team. I love my wide receiver depth as well. I feel I have a great starting roster. And then I have Duvernay I'm excited about. John Ross I just picked up who I'm hoping
Yeah, that was a nice pickup.
Yeah, the Bengals didn't extend him. And, I mean, he was former first-round pick. So someone I'm excited for. And then Alan Lazard. And then hopefully Josh Rosen will take over after Tom Brady. We'll see. I don't know. And then Denzel Mims is another one that's really under the radar when it comes to Dynasty. And he played his first game healthy finally, again, with Adam Gase, with Sam Darnold, and looked good. I mean, he was a second-round pick this past year. So, you know, I got a couple of good wide receivers I'm excited for. Overall, we'll see what happens. Overall, I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on my team up to this point?
Quarterbacks, I mean, I think you got your quarterbacks are fantastic. They're exactly just between, even if you leave your healthy quarterbacks right now are 3 quarterbacks that I would love to have.
Yeah.
I really like Drew Lock. I just don't know. I do think Denver's just got a long ways to go.
Yeah.
There are quite a few pieces away from being contenders.
Yeah.
But I do like the youth of Drew Lock and the pieces they're putting around him. Your running backs are solid, but again, low floor running backs. But they're, in theory, they're workhorses.
Mm-hmm.
And they should be getting the carries. I think your receiver depth is fantastic. I'd really say the only knock on your team is but not many teams have it. It's just like a boom tight end play.
Yeah.
And then there are a couple positions you start falling for a team that's contending. Mm-hmm. You're teetering, like you said, you're teetering the line of your bye week fill-ins being, or injury fill-ins being like projection versus can they help me win this week?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It just makes it tough because it's like, if you look at my team is filled with next year type of players. Yeah. And I never know who to start.
Yeah.
When my team's fully healthy and I have no bye weeks, I never know who to start. And that happens sometimes when you're in your bye weeks and you're trying to be like, I kind of have to throw this guy out here and go and hope for the best. But I mean, when you can get 60 points combined at quarterback position, and then get double-digit points everywhere else except for one running back, essentially. I mean, you're going to have it 3 spots did not get double digits.
But these are good buys and injuries, right? This wouldn't be the team I'm
exactly
going with.
Yeah. Exactly. So when you have to plug in those guys, but they're starters. Darius Slayton, starter. Hollywood Brown. I mean, high snap count guys.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of which you can really ask for. I know you really wanted Calvin Ridley, but like when you get Josh Jacobs and Dalvin in its own, I don't know, sometimes I think you get good trade offers and you just tinker too much. And I'm like, man, your team is so good. What do you like? Just leave it alone. Just sit. Yeah. But no, the moves you've made make sense. And when you talk them out, I go, okay, I can see where you're coming from. Because you're like, man, I feel like I just don't have any long-term viability. with my team at times. So I really appreciate that. I mean, your quarterback position, it's nice that you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
I have to go into the draft next year, like, where are guys going at quarterback? Who's ahead of me? Who's in a position? Is Nino ahead of me in the draft? Okay, I need to move up so I can draft a quarterback. You know, and that's a good and a bad place to be in. You just get to kind of draft like, oh, that guy's dropped to me. Cool, I'll take him.
Yeah.
Again, I think your team would be another one that could really benefit from a top tight end. In the top rookie tight end.
Absolutely.
But I think getting Zach Moss as a running back depth piece was the best thing you did to your running back room, because he is just, I mean, you're a Ute. I'm a huge Zach Moss guy. He's only going to get better.
Yeah.
I mean, when he played over 50% of the snaps past 2 weeks, and he's scoring touchdowns. His yards per, it's not the greatest, but they want to get him the ball.
Well, 5.8 last week, 6.7 the week before. Like, it's not terrible, right?
And this week against Seattle, they were just like, we're not running the ball. We're just going to throw. I mean, Josh Allen it was a great game plan because the Seahawks are built to stop the run, not defend the pass. And I think Kareem Hunt might be your best value pick. It really is one of the best value picks in the draft that we've seen so far. Him and Terry McLaurin, if I'm being honest. Terry McLaurin, and Tyler Boyd. Yeah.
No, I'm with you, man. And so looking at my team as a whole from like an eagle eye view, and I might be missing a couple pieces, but the way I see it now, transitioning over the whole course of the season, all the trades I've made, I started out with Dalvin Cook and Terry McLaurin and Derek Carr. Right, those are three of the players I had. I got rid of those, and in return, I have Jonathan Taylor, Calvin Ridley, and Dak Prescott. Right, that's the swap. Yeah. There was a couple players here and there, but that was the major swap. And I think from a longevity perspective, that I think I'm very happy with those trades. But we'll see, man. Yeah.
Are you confident? I mean, obviously, I know you're not like Adam Schefter or anything and have like insider knowledge, but are you confident that the Cowboys are going to re-sign Dak Prescott?
I am. Yeah, I am. And mostly because, well, as the Dak owner, I can't sell him, right? I can't drop him. That would be dumb. And I can't sell him because I am selling him at his floor price right now, right? Like, either the two options I see going into next season is because he's projected to recover before the season starts next year.
He should be okay.
So even if they don't give him franchise tag him another year, I would expect him to go to another team that needs him, which would be a downgrade, right? One of the reasons why he's so good is because their defense is trash and he has amazing weapons in Dallas. So I'm hoping he stays in Dallas. So far, everything out of their management is saying that they will. The biggest concern and the biggest hindrance on Dak Prescott's future value is the draft, right? Is the 2021 draft. Because right now the Cowboys are terrible. The Cowboys are so bad. They're going to end up with a top 5 pick, right? If they continue down this path. And if that's the case, then what's to stop them from getting a Justin Fields, right? What's to stop them from trading up a couple spots and getting a Trevor Lawrence? And then all of a sudden Dak becomes irrelevant, right? And get a player on a rookie contract that you don't have to pay, might have an even better, brighter future than Dak. So I'm rolling the dice, right? I'm rolling the dice, but in my situation, that's what I have to do. Right? I don't have any other choice. I can't sell him. And honestly, if I was in anyone else's shoes in the league, I'd be sending low ball offers on Dak Prescott, right? If someone's trying to win now, because I think, one, his value can only go up. I don't see him retiring, and I think he's an excellent talent. But two, there's a chance that he comes back next season, is fully healthy with a long-term contract, and is a top 5 fantasy quarterback, man. I mean, look how terrible the Cowboys are doing since he left. Like, it is so bad. I was watching the game now, and they said it was like 40 drives since Dak Prescott left, and they had only scored a single touchdown. Like, they need someone so badly. So as long as they don't draft him, I think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback next season.
And you'll know very quickly into the offseason whether or not what the Dak situation is going to look like.
Yeah.
He's going to be I could see him getting the Kirk Cousins treatment.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Tag, and just go from there. But no, I mean, whoever the quarterback of the Cowboys is awesome. it is the guy you want to own because the run game is solid. The offensive line, when healthy, is solid. The receivers are the best trio of receivers in the NFL.
Oh, hands down. Yeah.
Behind the Bucks now.
Yeah, behind the Bucks. Sure.
Behind the Bucks with Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then I honestly think the Steelers are up there as well in terms of collection of talent at receiver.
Yeah.
But no, when it comes to the Cowboys, whoever's get to throw the ball to Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and wow, it's just rude of me. What is his name?
Gallup? Michael Gallup?
Yeah, Michael Gallup, plus Zeke and Tony Pollard. I mean, they got good tight ends. They have an awesome offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, former Boise State quarterback, coach's son. You know, I like your team. I'm just curious to see what more moves you're going to make. I guess and that would be my thing. I think you would be a great candidate to try to get another veteran piece to fill out your flex.
Yeah.
But honestly, who am I? If I'm you, I'm probably just filling that out through the draft.
Yeah.
And just going from there, or waiting until draft day and seeing how your team looks after the season, because draft picks are at their highest when you're drafting.
Yeah.
Their price value goes through the roof. So maybe even selling I definitely could see myself either giving you picks or you giving me picks so I can get one of your quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Assuming the board doesn't fall my way. I definitely see that as a viable option for myself. So no, I'm really excited to see. I'm excited to see how I don't really consider my team in the top 3 or 4 teams this year, but yours is definitely there, and I'm curious to see what it's going to shake up out to be.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. And like you said, we'll know early. One of the biggest criticisms of Dak returning is people were worried about how much he'd be rushing, because he did have a decent rushing floor, but it wasn't very much, man. He was throwing up 400, 500-yard games in this stretch before he got injured. Like, the man was balling out.
Dak's mobility from a very unprofessional athletic training background and knowing his injury, I really wouldn't be worried about the injury he sustained in terms of coming back, as long as it's not rushed.
Yeah.
But it's not a ligament thing. It's not something where you got to worry about if the ligaments are healed. It's in the foot. They're going to go in. They're going to screw what they got to screw together. He's going to have to recover. But it's bone. Bone fuses back together how it always does. Yeah. So I think he should be able to still have his mobility, unless if there's complications like, God forbid, like an Alex Smith type of thing where you almost lose your leg due to the type of ordeal. But no, he should be fine. All right.
Absolutely.
It's an injury where it's like it sucks, but it's not career threatening by any means.
Yeah. No, I agree. So we'll see, man. One last comment I want to make on my team is, for those watching, I do believe that Juju Smith-Schuster is an excellent buy low candidate, right? He had a good game today. He's had a couple good games. Honestly, right here is where you should have bought him low because he's seeing the targets again and actually producing. Because there was a little bit where I put him on the trade block and someone offered me like just a 3rd round pick for him. And I was like, just a 3rd round? Like, I understand he wasn't performing, but at least from my perspective, right? A lot of people hate on Juju. He's 23 years old. He has put up multiple 1,000-yard receiving seasons as a 23-year-old, right? Like, how many people can say they've done that? He is incredibly young. He has all the physical traits for it, and I don't think he's going to be a Steeler next season, right? The man's going to want a contract, and maybe they can work out something with the Steelers, but I don't think Big Ben's going to be the future for the Steelers, and I don't think Juju's going to be there either. I think the Steelers see Claypool and they see Deontay Johnson and they see Washington, and they're like, we don't need to pay Juju all this money. We're set, and I think he's going to get a solid contract elsewhere. And so I would try to buy him before that. Yeah, I'd try to buy him before that, because this is he's in a contract year. So just, word to the wise. That's why I'm holding on to him, because I've thought about, shipping him off because he's had a lot of mediocre outputs. But if I do, I'm selling a 23-year-old wide receiver for his bottom value. Like, he would just be that is called a sell low and not always recommended, for sure. All right, man. The last team we have, and then we'll wrap this up, is Sagalicious. And all my criticisms of other teams up to this point, and why even good teams I'm still hard on, is because of this team right here. When we first did this draft, we went through and we're like, man, it looks like, at least at face value, that he's sold out for this year. That's what it looks like. It looks like between Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Melvin Gordon, Travis Kelce, Julio Jones, James Conner. It looks like he came into the draft just saying, I just want to win in 2020. I might have a good chance in 2021. Then who cares about the future? That's what it looks like. And it's paying off, right? And it's paying off. But one thing I don't think we highlighted enough was how good the other pieces were in this roster. I mean, dude, he has 2 top 8 wide quarterbacks every week, right? Or at least top 10, right? Where both of these players putting up 50 to 60 points between Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers on any given week. His running back depth is insane, right? But what I think it was super, super underrated was the Robbie Anderson pick and the James Robinson pick. James Robinson, he picked up off waivers, right? No one else even submitted a bid. He was the only one to do it. He got Robbie Anderson super late in the draft. Both Robbie Anderson's a wide receiver 1. James Robinson is a running back 1 right now, and he got them for free, right? So that alone shows to me that he drafted well. It wasn't just that he sold out for this year. And then finally, the Travis Kelce pick. Like, the Travis Kelce pick was one that I hated on, that I wasn't super optimistic about. I'm not big on getting tight ends early. Travis Kelce is averaging, and I did the math, is averaging 18 points every single week, right? And having a stacked team where he has Cooper Kupp, right, on his bench, who's not even up there right now. Having a stacked team and then having 18 points every single week from your tight end, and then having 50 to 60 points from your quarterback is why he's going to be 8-1 and is leading the league in points. Like, I just can't. And he's so annoying. He texts me every single day and he's like, dude, my team is so stacked. I was like, I know it is. Like, I understand that. Let's quickly go do a little history on his team, just because I wanted to. What week was it? He had one week where he faced, where him and Atticus faced off, right? This happened in week 7, and it was 196 to 191. I personally think this is what I project at the beginning of the season to be a preview of the championship. And I don't think that's unlikely, given how everything kind of shook out with where they're at. I faced him earlier in the season, and I put up 180 points, and he had like 185, right? So his team is just stacked at every position. The one criticism is youth, but at this point, I mean, who really cares, right? We're like, okay, maybe in 3 years from now, Tom Brady's retired, Julio Jones is retired. Well, I mean, he's going to draft players to fill in, right? And it's not like he doesn't get to draft now. They're just a little bit later. And he can trade players to still be a dominant team. So I don't know, man. It's tough for me to look at any team, even my own, and say I even have a shot against his team in the playoffs, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I really don't have much to say about it. Especially as someone that has DJ Moore and just seen Robbie Anderson do his thing. I'm like, wow, that hurts. Yeah. Travis Kelce, awesome. Running back depth there. Receiver depth there. Quarterback depth. If he has to play Sam Darnold, he can. And it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Going into the playoffs, though, I mean, he's got Le'Veon Bell still just on his bench, Tevin Coleman, Cooper Kupp, and, I mean, that's just Golden Tate, John Brown. I mean, this team is just – Mike – dude, the fact that he has Mike Williams on a taxi squad hurts me inside.
Yeah. The man is he's been playing well right now. Like, he has boom games, right? But that's who he is. I can't say enough good things about this team. His only criticism is,
lack of youth
and a little bit of lack of depth at the quarterback position, but he can draft that or easily trade for it. Because I know he can send, James Conner maybe, but like Melvin Gordon or James Robinson to anyone, and he can get a solid quarterback or wide receiver if he needed to. So yeah, man, it's going to be tough. So this comes down to the final question, right? Who takes it, right? We just went through every single team. My initial back at the beginning of the season was Atticus against Nick T, and I had Atticus winning. And I think your initial projection was me against Nick Kaludis, and you had Nick Kaludis winning. Who would you say now, looking at every single team, who do you think the championship is? I stick by my projection, except I think Nick T is going to take it. Looking at it now, who do you think has the best shot? And who do you think takes it?
I really don't know. I think Nino's going to be a tough team to beat.
Yeah.
And he's helped himself out by getting those early wins on low-scoring weeks, and he's really transformed his team. I think his receivers are tough, but his running back depth, not always there right now. If J.K. Dobbins ends up taking care of the backfield over the next 5-6 weeks, Nino's team gets extremely tough to beat. Mm-hmm. Extremely tough to beat. But man, right now I really have a hard time not taking Sagalicious, just because that team is. I mean, every single one of those players can ball.
Yeah. He also has Jarvis Landry as well on bye.
That's what I'm saying, dude. And Cooper Kupp on the bench. It's just like,
it's ridiculous.
Come on now.
Yeah, it is
like
ridiculous.
he isn't such a big like. Oh, I'll just trade Cooper Kupp and someone else, and I'll just get a top 5 pick.
Yeah, why not? Yeah,
type of thing, and that's the. I don't think Nick LeBoon, Trey, Kaludis can, but literally everything has to go 100% right for him or myself have a chance to win. I think it comes down to the top 4, and I think there's a clear, distinct difference between the top 4 and everyone else.
Yeah.
Right now, I'd probably say it's going to be Nino versus Sagalicious, and I'll give it to Sagalicious.
Okay. I like it.
Because I think Nino's receiving core has the chance to really. I think it has the chance to make things work.
Yeah.
And especially he's just got to figure out that running back situation. Hope that Nick Foles can not fall. Nick Foles and Drew Brees can put it together one last time. But with Michael Thomas coming back, man. I mean, but that's why I mean exactly. That's why I'm like he's not out of it too. Yeah. I don't think Nick LeBoon, myself, or Trey have a shot this year. I really think the top 5 teams are Kaludis, Nino, Atticus, yourself, and Sagalicious. As of now, I think I'm going to give it to Sagalicious, Nino losing in the championship. But I could see I definitely see that. Man, it is just that top 4. That top 4 is tough. It's tough for me to even like without looking at because a lot of it, especially in fantasy, comes down to matchups.
Yeah.
And especially with the teams that I listed as low floor, high ceiling teams. I think Nino is a team that's like that. I think Kaludis is a team like that, and I think yourself could be considered into there. And so it really just comes down to matchups and who's going to end up popping off, who's hot at the end of the season. Man, it's so tough to make that decision. I got to give it to Sagalicious, though, because who did he lose to?
I don't even remember. I just remember it being like a crazy bye week. But yeah, no, it's crazy, man. It is absolutely.
Crazy. I just have a hard time thinking anyone's going to beat this team this year.
Yeah. It's true, man. It's true. So we do have to wrap it up. But I do want to say right before we end, talking about picks, talking about looking towards the future. I did, watching college ball, looking a little bit down the road. I went onto CBS Sports, and they projected 6 different wide receivers to go into the first round next year's NFL draft. Right? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because teams need to start looking towards the future. Right? I think teams need to be honest with themselves. Am I going to make this upcoming year? What does my team need? How can I get more picks? Because you said tight end, stacked, right? Let me list out some names. Jamar Chase, Rondell Moore, Justin Ross, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, and Rashad Bateman, right? Those 6 right there could all potentially go within the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft, according to CBS Sports. And, I mean, they're not going to be players you're going to want to miss. Right. So
you're telling me, man. You're telling me.
Not to mention Trevor Lawrence, not to mention Justin Fields. Like, it's a stacked class coming in. So everyone out there who's in this league or not, look at your dynasty league, be honest with yourself, and then really start preparing for the future, because that's making trades mid-season and getting more picks is how you develop a dominant dynasty team. So that's my advice to anyone. Do you have anything else to wrap it up with?
No, really the biggest thing I just hope that we can it's nice to see I am going to win. Wow, that's nice.
I'm so mad.
It's fantastic. That 165 is nice.
You know what's really funny? Had I not traded Nino this past weekend and kept Terry McLaurin in my lineup and had Zach Moss as my running back as opposed to Jonathan Taylor, I would have beat you this week. Now, looking down the road, I still think I made the right choice. But watching players you trade go off sucks. And that's just part of fantasy football. But it just sucks every single time. And that just keeps happening to me. Or they get injured, and then my team just gets worse. So you know how it is. Anyways.
No, so I think I just hope everything can stay okay COVID-wise. I would really say that would be my biggest concern. And I'm excited. Well, fingers crossed. I'm excited to get back to a more routine off season to see a lot of what happens in the NFL. Because right now we're really starting to see teams hit their stride over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Like teams like the Bucks, for example, teams that need time to mesh. The Panthers really took it to the Chiefs today, you know?
Yeah, won, man. Yeah.
You know, so a lot of these young teams, I think Cincinnati's going to only continue to get better. I'm just excited to watch a lot of these young guys because we are moving into a new era of the NFL.
Yeah.
The old quarterbacks are about to be out. The Brady's, the Rodgers, the Roethlisbergers, you know, they're on their way out. Not that they're not good anymore, but they're on their way out. We're ringing in a new era of receivers. We're about to be Devontae Adams, Julio Jones type of receivers. They're going to be on their way out. It's a new inflection. We're starting to see the impact of 7-on-7 and spread offenses in youth football making their way into the NFL. And that's why I think you're about to see a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of receivers starting to light it up. Their football IQ in terms of the passing game is much higher, which just makes fantasy football that much more fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really what I think football in a nutshell over, 3-4 years really boils down to.
Absolutely, man. I will say this. I'm personally grateful that we even have a season, right? Because we didn't know coming in.
Amen, dude. Amen.
And I honestly, I'm in a lot of different leagues. I'm in multiple different leagues. And this is the only Dynasty league I'm in. And this is by far not only the toughest, but the most fun league that I'm in.
Yeah.
It's not even close. I enjoy my league, but this league is a blast. So, yeah, it is awesome. Sweet. Well, that is all from us, man. I appreciate you jumping on with me, and we'll have to do one at the end of the season.
Oh, yeah, undoubtedly. I'd honestly even be down for a little playoff preview.
Oh, I like it.
Playoff preview, recap after that, and then go from there. We get maybe 3 to 5 in for a season, and we go from there. No, I'm really excited to see how this pans out, and any team can win it any week. Yeah. Just want to put it that way. Sagalicious is at 112 right now on the week. Like, you beat him. Sam's team would have beaten him this week. Atticus beats him. I beat him. So any team can win at any point in time.
It's very true. Yeah, no, it's true, man. It's crazy. It is absolutely wild. I appreciate you jumping on, and we'll have to do one for the playoffs then. I like it.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Thanks for having me.